Today we're going to talk about 3 supplements that are commonly taken by millions of people. Okay, and I want to share with you some data that will help you decide whether or not you should take magnesium, vitamin D3 and K2, and I'm going to explain why. Now, I have a little bit of background in this topic, because I used to suffer from severe anxiety and panic attacks. In fact, I had panic attacks for years and years and years, and back then, probably 25, 26 years ago, there wasn't much known about the connection between the gut and the brain and how the two are connected. So I ended up taking magnesium to help my anxiety. But after taking magnesium, I started having diarrhea, and so I stopped the magnesium and the diarrhea went away. So I thought, wow, magnesium actually works too well, right? Because I didn't know anything about the physiology behind it. I just knew that, hey, when I take this, I feel better. When I take this, I have diarrhea. Well, fast forward to now, we have a lot more data. And so let's talk about magnesium first. Okay, there are many forms of magnesium. We're only going to talk about the 2 main ones. There's magnesium citrate and there's magnesium glycinate. All the other ones are basically relatively unavailable forms of magnesium, including magnesium oxide. Now, magnesium citrate is highly bioavailable. It gets absorbed very easily. Magnesium glycinate is also highly bioavailable, but it's more expensive. So doctors and compounding pharmacies tend to use magnesium glycinate because it is a little bit more gentle on the stomach. What does magnesium do? It helps over 300 different enzymes in the body. One of them being an enzyme called magnesium adenosine triphosphatase. That's in the small intestine. What that does is it allows more calcium to be absorbed from your intestine into your blood. So if you take magnesium, you're going to increase the absorption of calcium. But if you don't have enough calcium, you could potentially have a rebound effect where you start to absorb too much magnesium. And where would that come from? From your bone. So magnesium keeps calcium inside your cells. If you don't have enough calcium, then you can start to mobilize magnesium from your bone, which then can cause you to have low magnesium. So it becomes this balancing act between magnesium and calcium. And what is the normal range for magnesium? Well, it's 1.3 to 2.6 milligrams per deciliter. Now what's interesting is that when they measure total magnesium in the blood, most labs aren't going to pick up the amount of magnesium that's inside the cell. They're going to measure the ionized magnesium, which is the amount that's in the blood. So the normal amount of ionized magnesium in your blood is 1.3 to 2.6. But guess what? The amount of magnesium inside your cells is like 40 times greater than what's in the blood. So you can have normal levels of magnesium in your blood, but you can be depleted inside the cells. How do you test that? Well, you can look at certain proteins in your blood that show that you're low in magnesium. One example is called albumin. If you're low in magnesium, albumin tends to go up. Another one is called globulin. So if you see that that's high, that could mean that you're low in magnesium. Another sign could be chronic fatigue. Also elevated blood pressure, because you have higher levels of angiotensin II. Another symptom would be muscle cramps. If you're exercising and your muscles cramp, that could be a magnesium deficiency. I think you should take magnesium if you need it. How do you know you need it? Well, do a test. Check your magnesium, check your calcium. If your magnesium is low, you should take it. Now, keep in mind, even though you might have a normal magnesium, you may still be deficient inside the cells. Now, how much should you take? It really depends on the severity of your deficiency. I recommend you work with a doctor on that. Vitamin D3. The main reason why people take vitamin D3 is to increase their immune system. Some people take it for depression. Some people take it because they have autoimmune disorders. Others take it because they have mood disorders. But here's the problem. When you take vitamin D3, it causes hypercalcemia, which is too much calcium in the blood. Where does the extra calcium come from? It comes from your bone. So vitamin D3 increases the absorption of calcium in your intestine, but it also mobilizes calcium from your bone. Now, what's the normal amount of calcium in the blood? Well, it's 8.5 to 10.5 milligrams per deciliter. So the amount of calcium in the blood is a lot lower than magnesium. It's much, much lower. So if you start taking too much vitamin D3, you can very easily get too much calcium in the blood. And worse, is there no symptoms for hypercalcemia until you get like 15 milligrams per deciliter. So you can have high calcium and you don't feel anything until you get way up here. On the flip side, If you have too much vitamin D3, you can have kidney stones. And yes, you can have a vitamin D toxicity, but it's very rare. It usually happens when someone takes more than 10,000 IU per day. But the problem with taking too much vitamin D3 is that you can calcify your arteries. And what does that do? It increases the risk of heart attacks and stroke. Let's shift gears to vitamin K2. Now, vitamin K2 is normally recommended to be taken with vitamin D3 because vitamin D3 increases calcium in the blood, and vitamin K2 helps shuttle that calcium into the bone. So you can think of vitamin D3 working in the intestine and increasing calcium, and vitamin K2 working in the bone to help put that calcium in the bone. If you don't have enough vitamin K2, you can have calcification in the arteries and the valve of the heart. And so that's why sometimes people recommend taking vitamin K2 with vitamin D3. But here's the problem with taking vitamin K2. If you take too much vitamin K2, you can increase the risk of bleeding because vitamin K2 activates proteins that help your blood clot. Now, vitamin K2 is fat soluble, so it can stay in your body for a long time. It's very hard to overdose on vitamin K2, but you can if you take massive amounts. Like let's say you took 1000 micrograms per day, versus the recommendation is like 90 micrograms per day. If you take that much, you can have excessive bleeding. But generally speaking, vitamin K2 is pretty safe unless you're taking blood thinners like warfarin or Coumadin. Then you need to be careful. So if you're going to take vitamin D3, make sure you also take vitamin K2 with it. And you need to realize that when you take vitamin D3, it's going to increase calcium, and that's going to pull calcium out of your bone. So you need sufficient amounts of K2 to allow that calcium to be shuttled into the bone. But what about magnesium? Does magnesium affect vitamin D3? Absolutely. If you take vitamin D3 and you notice that your back is aching, that can be a sign that you have too much vitamin D3. Or you can do a simple 25-hydroxy vitamin D3 test to see if you're getting too much. But if you're getting a lot of sun, that can increase your vitamin D3. Also, if you're consuming vitamin D3 foods, like fatty fish or fish eggs or egg yolks, you can get vitamin D3 from those as well. The next question is it important to take magnesium with food? Yes, it is. Taking magnesium without food creates a lot of cramping in the stomach, which then reduces the absorption of magnesium. Next question is, can taking magnesium cause low potassium? Yes, it can. That's because when you take magnesium, it can interfere with the absorption of potassium. So if you're going to take magnesium, you should also take potassium as well. Can I take magnesium if I have kidney stones? Yes, you can. In fact, magnesium helps prevent kidney stones. But you need to make sure that you take magnesium glycinate. That's the only form that won't create a problem. Next question is, should I take magnesium at night? You can. Most people find that taking magnesium at night helps them sleep because it relaxes the muscles. One last question on magnesium is, should I take it on an empty stomach? No, you should not. You should take magnesium with food because it can create cramping. Hopefully this will help you understand the relationship between these three minerals. And hopefully you can make a more informed decision on whether or not you should take them and how to take them. Hey, before you go, real quick, I have a course entitled How to Bulletproof Your Immune System. It's a free course. I want you to take it. It'll give you the tools to bulletproof yourself against any viruses, including the one you're concerned about. Check it out. I put it up right here.